Hello and welcome to the Bones Horror Podcast. This is episode 98, The Nun, and I'm getting some echo, one of you. Okay.
We're back!
Happy New Year. So we've been off for 2 months. So literally my fault most of the time, I think majority of the time. I was so busy living a life. Right, I'm just going to mute you for a minute, Larry. It's very confusing on my end. So we had a few weeks off. A few weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks?
Yeah.
I'm muted. Can you all hear me
Hi.
still?
Yeah.
Is this all going tits up, is it? So, yeah, we've had a few weeks off.
I don't get it. Am I missing something? Is it going fucked up for me?
I was echoing, Larry, and it's quite hard to kind of talk.
It might be, because we
I've turned it down.
Yeah, because I think we sorted it out by muting Larry, and then when you unmuted it, it stopped echoing. So maybe we do that a few times during the podcast. And
Hopefully that
midway for a sentence, just like, it means that.
Yeah.
It's okay now. It's all good. So apologies if you're listening at home. So we've had a few weeks off. My fault. We were going to do lots of Christmas films, and I'll still watch lots of Christmas horror films, but it was just too manic. I've been working near Oxford a lot and in Salisbury, so I've been all over the place. So I needed a break, but we are back. So what did I do? Did I talk to you about meeting a singer?
Oh, that's interesting. No, you haven't.
No? Okay. So once upon a time, we did a film called Titan, wasn't it? Titan.
Yeah.
And there's a song in that called The Lighthouse or Lighthouse, by what were they called again? I should know this. All right,
Good plug. Okay.
They are well. The thing is that they were amazing as well. So they were called. Oh God, my life's so bad at the moment. I can't concentrate. I cannot do anything. What is the point of being me? I don't know. So I met Future Islands. Okay, so the singer Sam, you know Future Islands. So anyway, so I was working at the university, and they parked the buses outside the Guildhall there. And in the morning, I'd just been for a hot sausage, as I do in the morning, and there he was, the singer, outside. So I got chatting to him about bits and pieces. Massive fan of the podcast, obviously, and I didn't have tickets, so he put me on the guest list.
Nice.
So me and my oldest son Ollie, we went and watched Future Islands, which was an amazing night, and it's certainly a hell of a show. And that guy can sing and dance and do everything, and it was absolutely superb. So, and I hadn't really listened to much of them before watching the Titan movie. So I thought that was really nice. And thank you, Sam. Hope you're listening tonight. Amazing stuff. Wow. And that's about it, really. Watching my team lose at football constantly. Getting banned from football for 3 matches. That's another story for another day. Just been quite interesting. Nice Christmas. So you guys, as I'm unable to speak very well tonight, maybe it's your turn. Jess? Oh no.
I don't know where we left off. I've been at my new job for a while now. That's been
Yep.
I just had a really chilled Christmas. But we got to go on a new cruise ship for one night. That was amazing.
I saw that ship. Yeah.
Yeah, it was huge. Got dressed up and went to a silent disco with the rest of my colleagues. Drunk far too much, and then had to get up and get off the ship in the morning to go back to work. So yeah, it was really
Nice.
Why is Paul Crackling young?
Nice.
So the audience doesn't know what's going on now. Basically, Lawrence said he thought the noise was a bit crackling on his end, and for no reason at all, I just said pork crackling yum.
So
Yeah.
I have got some
What the fuck? How, what?
proper pork crackling. These are chili naga ones, so they're very, very spicy.
How do you have them on hand just as
Oh,
soon
don't-
as
Just the
like
way.
what?
This podcast is about, and people forget that. I know I couldn't remember the name of a band, but it's all about preparation, guys.
It's like
I
psychic
like
preparation.
Foresight,
It's like-
foresight, all about.
Or you just
foresight.
ran out for a bit and got the pork crackling and then ran back, ran back inside.
This is just a recording.
Yeah.
Unpauses it, just like oh.
It's like Saw 2 or something.
I mean, he's also got a tortoise to hand, so
So
Oh,
yeah, in
I
the
can
background.
see. I did see. I did
Well,
wonder
my-
what was in there.
my-
I just thought it was a
my-
cage.
No, it's a bit annoying really because my youngest son, he had a tortoise and then he gave up looking after it. So he went to my middle son Alex and he kind of gave up because I like the tortoise, but it's a bit boring. I would have thought. So in the end,
do a lot.
he's come in with me and he's happy as Larry now. I've put him to sleep, so he's not jumping
You
about
killed
in
him.
there and yeah, but yeah, he's great. Well, I'll get him out one day, but the tortoise, and you can meet him. Gonny, his name is.
Nice.
I'm getting echo again. So, what have you been up to, Ewan? Or Larry sorts himself out.
I have not changed a thing. I do not get this. They just
I think I sorted it out. to be honest.
That's called out.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I've been doing the usual thing. So I've been going to more and more press screenings because Oscar season's coming. So I've been going to more and more films. It's weird though, because you often in my job, I'm obviously very privileged to be doing what I'm doing, but occasionally occasionally it's really weird when you sort of like, because I went to a screening recently, a screening of Steven Spielberg's new film, but there was also a screening in the other screening room of Nolly, which is a new TV drama by Russell T Davies and starring Helena Bonham Carter. And so as I arrived to the venue, this car was trying to get past me. And I looked in the window, and in the window was Helena Bonham Carter. I was like, oh, fuck, okay. And then I was just like, okay, I'll go first. And then,
Wow.
but it's these instances which it's like, oh, it's a really well-known, really famous actress that's just there, and it's a really mundane thing. And then later on, as I was sort of waiting for the film to start, sort of in the lobby area, Russell T Davies, as very tall man, just sort of passed by. I was like in my head, I was just like, "You're one of my heroes," and I don't know what to do. I'm just sitting here, and you're just like walking past. I mean, obviously, it's not really polite to sort of go up and say, "I love you." It's just it's just there. But yeah. So it's quite fun just to be back in the swing of it. And I'm enjoying myself. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's
nice.
It's good to be back, isn't it? It's good to be back out there. I found that I had a couple of weeks off at Christmas, and it was kind of nice to get back out there. But I am traveling 110 miles round trip every day now, so it's not great in some ways. So Larry,
yeah, no, good Christmas. Still working. All good on that. And then I finally sorted out my PlayStation 5, so now I've got both the consoles together. And
your Series X as well.
Yeah, both of them right next to each other.
Right.
But the when I was picking it up, the bundle that they did, they didn't just do any by itself, but the one I got came with the new God of War. So I'm looking forward to giving that a go.
Okay.
And I'm going to replay all of The Last of Us on it because you have to, and especially with the series coming out. Well, sorry, series that's out.
Have you got? Or are you getting the remake, or are you just playing it?
Yeah.
Right, okay. Well, tell me how that is because I haven't got it, but I have. I'm interested.
Yeah. Well, because I did the whole PlayStation Plus thing, and you can like play the it's weird because one's called the remake and one's called the remastered.
Yeah.
And the remastered is the PlayStation 4 copy
That's the one I've done,
which is free. But I'm gonna get the PlayStation 5 one, which is the remake.
Yeah, The Last of Us Part 1, isn't it? So it's
Yeah,
sort of
yeah. Last of Us
different.
Last of Us Part 1, and then in like brackets it's like remake. So
Right.
that's the one that I'm gonna do,
Yeah.
and then I'll do The Last of Us 2 again.
Oh, yeah. I need to
But
play that
yeah,
again.
that's basically it. Like, not too much. Watched like quite a lot of stuff, obviously. Was
We've
quite
only got
cool
an hour,
because
though,
just
haven't we?
before-
We've only got an hour tonight because
Roughly.
you've got to go and
Yeah.
eat. Is that right, Larry?
Yes,
Yeah.
the many normal things of human nature.
You have to feed, Lawrence. You
Oh.
have to feed at 9 p.m.
I have to feed.
So here we go. The Nun, our episode 98. A priest with a haunted past and a novice on the threshold of her final vows are sent by the Vatican to investigate the death of a young nun in Romania. 2018's The Nun. Directed by Colin Hardy. The only film I think I've seen is The Hallow, is it? Which is a British movie. I'm sure I've seen it, but I'm going to watch it again. So, but that got really good kind of reviews and things. It starred. Hang on, this echo's getting bad. Tessa Fomia as Sister Irene, Damien Bersher as Father Burke, Jonas Blaquette as Frenchie, and Bonnie Adams as Valak the Nun. Budget of 22 million and a box office of 365 million. Rotten Tomatoes, what are we thinking?
Shit.
I reckon it'll. I actually don't think many people actually like this film, or at least not as much as like The Conjurings. So I reckon it's going to be in the 40s. Now I'm echoing 40s.
There's a big echo there.
I swear it wasn't me. Please don't kick me out. No, I'd agree. I'd say just a bit lower.
It's not you. It's not you.
Would that
Yo.
help?
I'd
No.
say about 50.
I'm
25.
gonna go just a bit lower. 25.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's bad.
I'm glad.
Yeah, I'm glad people see
terrible.
sense.
Oh, we lost all our. We had a couple of viewers a minute ago. We lost them due to my stumbling and echoing and everything else. So I don't really. I watched this twice over Christmas, and I'll tell you the story. I watched it the first time, and it bored me. The second time, I had about 6 pints, and it was amazing. I had so much fun with it, and I can highly recommend to anyone. 4 pints, 5 pints in, it becomes a lot more interesting and actually quite funny.
I can see that.
Yeah.
But it should be a
And
requirement, though,
ridiculous.
is it?
It shouldn't be a requirement because if you're in the cinema, you'd spend half the time in the toilet, wouldn't you?
Is
after
that going to
6
be the new sort of rating by the BBFC? It's going to be you have to have 6 pints before you.
I mean,
watch
There's
the
two
film.
ratings.
Recommended 6 to 8 pints.
I think if I had 5 pints, I'd probably enjoy Swamp Ape. So
And we're related. I can't believe that. Episode 100, Swamp Ape 2. So, can we just
Don't want to
talk about
remake
the
it.
film? Because I enjoyed it the second time, and having 6 pints, or it was Christmas, probably over. It wasn't like I had 6 pints in half hour. It was over a period of time, probably 2 hours. But it was okay. So I've written down 3 things that kind of annoy me a bit, and then after 6 pints, it was quite interesting. So the jump scares was absolutely continuous. They tried to anyway. So that's kind of what I got from it. It was literally setting up the next jump scare after jump scare after jump scare, and it didn't have to be the nun. It was whatever. The kind of thing with the bells done by it, how they set that up, and then obviously he managed to be buried underground instantly, and the blood of Jesus.
Yeah, blood of Jesus. I mean, what I found interesting about this film is that
The blood of
it's
Jesus.
it's trying to sort of stitch together various other sort of subgenres within horror, right? Or at least the sort of you got sort of or sort of classic horror in some ways. So I mean, like the sort of castle they go to is very sort of Dracula, very sort of Nosferatu sort of like set up and everything. And then you've got the nuns who are sort of scaring themselves, and it's in a church. And you've got Buried Underground, which is another sort of tropey thing. And it's sort of that's kind of what it felt to me in some ways. It just felt a bit like a sort of Frankenstein's monster of better horror or scraps of better horror movies. And it
Lazy.
just, yeah, I think it was lazy. And I thought there were, I mean, there's so many things where it's just like, I don't understand why this thing led to this thing. So for example, at the beginning, when they're trying to sort of gather the team to go to this church, which is possessed by a demon, their choice is a nun who's not quite sure whether what she wants to be a nun, played by Taissa Farmiga,
the sister of.
Yeah, and she's like, because she like starts off like teaching the kids science and stuff like that, and you can clearly see there's doubt in her mind, and you know the process of the movie is the sort of is her like getting away from doubt and becoming like full on religious. I don't understand why they picked her. That there was that's weird backstory where she was like involved in something, but it didn't really.
I thought she was quite good though. Like, I didn't mind her at all.
I don't know. I the thing is with Taissa Farmiga is that I quite enjoyed her in the first season of American Horror Story.
Yeah,
that was really where
I
she got
agree.
through, isn't she? Yeah, and that. But here, I thought she was quite contrary to American Horror Story. Here, she was. I don't know. She felt a bit plain and a bit nice and a bit innocent to me. There was nothing sort of like. I don't know. There's no edge to her, and I felt I just felt like she wasn't that interesting, and equally she didn't give that interesting a performance. I think. I mean, she could scream. That's good, and she could do. You know, she could say lines in a certain way, and that you know. But I don't know. I didn't really find her that interesting in this.
I agree.
Oh, she was a nun. Though.
I think she could have given. It's such a shame. Is all I'll say. It's a shame with all of this fucking franchise.
But it had 22 million budget, and it did a box office of 365 million.
Because the producers
That's-
know what they're doing.
Yeah, I feel like that is they are like again. Don't get me wrong. They're smart in that they clearly know that there's an audience for it, and
people like me.
at the end of the day, well, no, but at the end of the day, it's not the fact how they're putting it out there and being like, let's continue it. I think for me, it's just the quality of them. Like they really do just sit down. It feels like someone sits down for a day and goes like, what's next? And someone goes, there was a nun in the last one. Let's fucking milk it. And it's like, right, give me 7 hours. I'll have something. And then they look at it and they go, it's great.
Yeah,
it's great. And it's
they're
a shame
making a
because
second
of
one.
it.
They're making it right now
because the first one did really well, and I'll tell you, I mean, the reason why it did the Nun did really well is because they obviously built up the character in the other. So Conjuring 2, that was like one of the more remarkable things about that movie in terms of like, you know, there was like a fan base for the Nun, and like everyone wanted to see more of the Nun, which is, you know, totally what how they planned. And then they put it into Annabelle Creation, and so there's the Nun, and then obviously the Nun, and then everyone's like, oh cool, there's a new film about the Nun, and they go and see the Nun, and it's shit. And
I agree, but she was some of the Conjuring 2. I think that was the best thing about it.
I would agree, and I think that's kind of missing from this. I also just didn't like they sort of try and like. I think they've done this before. I can't remember. It might have been with the first Annabelle movie instead of the second one, but it's kind of like the backstory to the nun is just that she's a demon. And there's not really an origin story there. It's just another story involving the nun. And even worse was that the kind of backstory that they tried to build throughout the film. Uh, is it too strong to say it was horseshit? I'm gonna go with horseshit.
I would go horse shit.
I'd go further.
Yeah, no, Gary.
Because firstly, there's sort of two sort of points in the backstory behind the nun. Firstly, that sort of Christian knights came in during the Crusades, I think, which is kind of problematic in itself.
Knights
But
Templar
anyway,
stuff was it?
yeah. So they
Well, that's
sealed up.
really quickly. Just
Yeah.
to add on what you said earlier, that whole thing then plays into a complete, for me anyway, tonal shift where they're like exploring, like almost like, dare I say, like Tomb Raider or Indiana Jones sort of thing, which I feel like this film wanted to cover its ground on. Like, we have a bit of this, we'll have a bit of this, and I don't know. I feel like a simpler plot that was just like, let's have fun with it, but it's so complicated.
But also, it's also weird because obviously, I mean, the Christian knights, they get to this a place where it's like God ends here. It's sort of like I don't know, the church basement essentially. That's like there, and it's kind of being a bit sort of Dante's Inferno. So sort of abandon the hope, all ye who enter here kind of situations. So they're sort of like trying to build up. They build up through the entire movie how scary this place will be. Turns out it's not that scary. I mean, the scariest bit in it was actually a clip that was used in the trailer. So everyone by that point who wanted to see the movie had already seen the scariest scene in the movie, which was when she's sort of following her from behind, and it's sort of, and then there's the jump scare where the other nun on the left like suddenly jumps out and stuff like that. But yeah, so the Christian knights seal up the sort of whatever it is, the sort of chasm that unleashed the demon that was there, and that sort of put a stop to it. And the only way to sort of stop it was like through the blood of Jesus. Ridiculous. So they seal it up, and then I mean, the bit which really I could kind of accept the Christian knights thing because it's all in the sort of the strand of religion and ghosts and theology and stuff like that. Fine, whatever, Christian knights. But then this sacred seal that's been done over by the blood of Christ and everything like that is somehow broken by bombs during the Second World War. I mean, that was ridiculous. That was ridiculous. I mean, they were just trying to sort of I don't know. I feel like they were trying to sort of come up with a reason why the demons haunting the church at that period of time. And so they think, okay, we need to do something about the Second World War because the Second World War is really, really close to 1952 or whatever it was. And it was just, you kind of watch it and you're just like, it's really, I mean, it's further than Jumping the Shark. It's just sort of, I don't know what I'm watching. It's not even like fun.
But it goes into again. But it goes into
fucking
it again.
horseshit.
It goes into it again that I really do think that with these films, they know that they'll have an audience. So they just come up with it on the spot, write it in, and no one sits there and goes, Shall we make it make sense? And someone just goes like, no, don't worry about it. Like, they'll see it. And then people go and see it. It makes a ton of money. And then they're like, great, we're confirmed for a sequel. Yeah. And it's such, like with these whole cameos about all of these films, it is attuned to like the Marvel Cinematic Universe where it's like, oh, look, I'm watching Winter Soldier and there's Captain America. He showed up for a scene. Can't wait for his film. Exactly. And it's just it's ongoing.
And there is that thing where it's almost like they were making sort of they were almost like they were building a story which wasn't connected to The Conjuring at all, and then they just added bits which were The Conjuring. So you see often, I mean, even with Annabelle Creation, which is a film I quite liked. They just at the end they just tie everything as if it was like yeah, we actually have to connect it somehow. It's just like weird writing.
What are your thoughts on the James Wan and Blumhouse?
I'm fine with it. I don't know, Lawrence, what do you think about it?
What are we going to end up with then?
I'm just bored of it. Like, James Wan recently did this film. Obviously, I don't know if any of you have seen it, but obviously Megan, which I've
not been and seen it yet.
No, so I do want to see it, but the reason I want to see it is because you can tell that James Wan has sat down and been like, you know what, I just want to make a good fun horror film. And you watch the trailer and you're like, I know this is not going to be a 10 out of 10. Like I was blown away, but it looks, and even just the effects of Megan, like, you know, how they did the whole, like, you know, they've got an actress in there who's doing all the body movements, and there's a separate actress who does the voice and the prosthetics and everything. But it's, again, you can tell it kind of reminds me of when I first saw the original, like very first Insidious. Now, I'm the same with that film. I do not think it's a great film, but I think for the time it was actually quite like just a fun new, like, oh god, they're doing ghosts in a new, unique way. With this whole Conjuring multiverse bullshit, I'm just bored of it now. And there are people still out there who are like, oh my god, can you believe that we're getting The Nun 2? And it's like, I really fucking don't give a shit. Like,
Yeah.
just
But
go
I
watch
am
it
one of
then.
those
Like,
people.
I personally,
I can't wait for Nun
I
2.
don't know why.
I can't wait. I can't
Well,
wait.
also-
And then Nun 3, and then the Nun
No.
TV series.
Yeah,
Also-
the Nun Dead Reckoning. That'll cut me.
Also, I think Megan is, or Megan 3, or M3 gun, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
Megan,
whatever it
Megan
looks
2
like.
in a couple of years.
I don't think it's directed by James Wan. I think it's just produced by James
No,
Wan.
he came up with the story,
Right, yeah.
and then someone else's. I think he worked with somebody. I don't think he's a lead writer, but
Apparently it's more
like,
of a apparently it's more of a satire. I haven't seen it, but apparently it's more of a
Yeah.
satire than a horror movie, according to critics.
yeah. That's why I'm interested, because you can tell he sat down and gone, I've got a really cool, just one-off, simple idea. Let's focus all my attention on it. And I have to admit, like, when I first saw the poster, I was like, oh fucking hell, here we go. But then you actually watch the trailers and it's like, no, actually, it looks like a
looks
bit
good.
of fun. Whereas
my
all
friend
these other
went to see
linked
it.
films just look a bit.
Yeah, my
Yeah,
mate went
no,
to see it.
I'd
It's
be
shit.
interested to see it.
So, but
What, you didn't like it? What, you didn't like it?
no, he's got no taste. So,
Although it is
But-
interesting how a lot of these it was a similar thing happened with Wednesday, where if you have a sort of horror or sort of or in that sort of vein where there's a dance scene in it, that becomes really popular on TikTok, and so people automatically
Go see
really
it.
want to see it, and it grows the
Yeah.
audience.
Don't-
So you
Don't get
sometimes
me
wonder if
started on
that's a
that
new
series.
if that's a new trope. If that's a new, I quite like Wednesday actually.
No, but this is the thing. This is the thing. It's well done, and it's like really well acted, and like I actually think, like, you know, there's potential there. But what you just said it, like personally, you will ask anybody and go, "Hey, did you like that series?" And they're like, "Oh my god, the Wednesday Dance," and I really shipped this person. It's just like, fuck off.
yeah.
Like, it used to be like, I love the old Addams Family like films where they were just about like showcasing that, and I don't know. You said it perfectly. Like, once you have a trend, people just will pick up on that. Like, I see that dance, whether it YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, you have somebody who's gone out and bought the dress, has done their hair like it, and then they start going, and you're just like, great.
Jess did.
Cool.
Who's Jess?
Yeah. It's on my TikTok.
I actually didn't know that. Oh my god.
No, I'm joking. I haven't actually.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I felt there was like an urge of like surprise, but also like
Nope.
feeling
Oh.
terrible at that same point.
I love that point. She just went back and just opened the cupboard, and it was like a full Wednesday. Gear
Yeah,
or whatever.
only there, like deleting the TikTok. Like,
So let's get Jess's views on this before we wrap this part of it up.
I quite like the film. Well, I completely agree, but it feels quite lazy and just a quick way to continue making money out of this series. It's just gone kind of on for too long. I think it's shot well. There's some scenes I really like in it, especially when they're all praying and then she goes and opens the door and they're like, what other nuns? And she turns around and there's no one else there and the body's been there for a really long time. And I thought that was a really good scene. And there's
Good
certain things
taste.
that I like it that are quite stereotypical that some people probably hate, but I really like. So when he opens the door and he's left her body in that like room and her body's sitting up and he's like, that's not how I left her. And it's just so like, it's just one of those things, but I loved it.
What do you think of? What do you think of Frenchie? Was he French? What was? I couldn't get my head around his accent.
It's
I don't
kind
know.
of like Bruce Campbell in a way, isn't it? It's sort of like
Yeah.
a sketch of Bruce Campbell.
Mm.
It was an odd. I quite liked him, but I just couldn't get my head around the accent or what he was or what he was doing.
I also sorry to jump it, but I really didn't like that. There was a line that he said towards the end when Tisa Farmiga's character basically says, "I'm gonna be a nun. It's gonna be great," and he basically said, well, he didn't say it like this, but the subtext was, "Oh, it's a shame I don't get to fuck you anymore at all." There was like that kind of vibe to it, where it was like, "Oh, it's a shame, we could have had sex," and I'm just like, that's just a bit, it's sort of played for laughs, and it's not meant to be
But
taken too seriously, but it's just like,
Yeah,
it's a bit
I was just about to say,
weird.
like, you remember when they say, like, oh yeah, only include, like, when you're shooting something, like, what is important to the plot, or like, I mean, that must have been desperately important to the plot.
Yeah.
Keep it in the
Yeah.
I did go to the cinema with Jess's granddad to watch this, and he'd not seen any of the Conjuring series at that point, and he said, "That was all right, Kev. That was bad. He didn't really ever mention it again, and he hasn't wanted to go to a horror film with me again since." So
that's a common theme I've noticed with people.
Yeah.
Is that the same with your spouse, or it's just...
So my wife will never. Well, I've taken her to see. I think I've said it on the podcast before. I went to see this nice new independent film that she may enjoy. It's called Saw. So she didn't like that too much, and we went to see the
as well.
we went to see the remake of The Hills Have Eyes. She didn't like that either. There have been a few. I took her to see Resident Evil. She didn't like that. Nor did I. There's been a few. Now she just refuses to go. So unless it's Star Wars or something, then that'd be it.
You might have luck with Evil Dead Rise.
No, she won't go. I'll take Jess to see that. I think there's no way. Or even she won't even watch that Evil Dead, the good version you put me onto, Larry. So she won't even watch that. So anyway, boners on this. What are you thinking, Larry? Oh dear. TikTok.
Two.
You, Larry.
I would give it lower, but I'm trying to remember my previous scores, and I can't remember if I gave one of them 1. So I'd say 2.
2. Oh, that's good. So you partly enjoyed it. So Jess?
I was going to give it a 6.
Okay. Yeah, I'd go 6 as well. Ewan?
Yeah, I'd give it 3.
Nice.
I was debating whether it was better or worse than the first Annabelle movie, and I think The Nun is only just better than Annabelle, because Annabelle looks like it had been almost made by students, if you know what I mean. So at least this looked like a film. At least it played out like a film, albeit a terrible one. So yeah, giving it 3.
Brilliant. We had to do this film at some point. It's done. We don't have to revisit
It's
it.
done. It's off the list. Yeah.
Our episode 99 will be. We're doing Annabelle Comes Home next, aren't we?
I think so. Yeah, isn't that?
So I think that Curse of La Llorona, whatever it's called, I think we just give that a miss, unless you really want to do it.
No. I want to do a film I like.
Well, you'll get to it in
well, episode 100, which is going to be a surprise for everyone, but we will get to that. Yeah. We haven't heard from our Swedish chef tonight, so I'm not sure where he is. But anyway, it's Dan's hot pick. But indeed.
Had
Now-
sound for that one.
What you did? I don't know what went on earlier for you. So a while ago, a couple of months, well, 3 months ago, Dan asked for us to look at hatching. Anyone heard of that?
Oh God, yeah. No, well,
I've
yeah.
heard
No, I
of
remember
it,
what
I
you
haven't
were
seen it.
talking about.
So
Yeah,
from the
no, I haven't
moment-
seen it yet.
From that moment that he mentioned it, I put it on order on iTunes, and it came through a week or so ago. So it was a 12-year-old gymnast finds a strange egg. When it hatches, what emerges beyond belief. That's the basics of it. So it is a film from Finland last year. I'm not sure why it took so long to come out. Its subtitle was in foreign. And I really like this film, as in I watched it twice last week. So I got halfway through it, and then I said to Alex, I'm really enjoying this film. It's a bit weird. Do you want to watch it? And he's like, yeah. So I started it again. So it's a film about this. It starts off with a girl and her family, and they're kind of the mum likes to film everything. So like a blogger, you could call it. I think that's the word for it. She blogs everything, and it's all this big happy family. And then one day a crow gets into the house. I can't remember if it come through the window or the chimney. Anyway, it does a lot of damage, and the little girl catches the crow, gives it to her mum. Her mum kind of breaks its neck. Which shocked the daughter. Anyway, the daughter a bit later on, she's in the woods. Why you'd let your 12-year-old out in the woods on her own, I don't know. But she's out in the woods and she sees this crow, and it's hurt its wing or something, and she smashes its head to bits. But there's about 10 bangs with a rock before it dies. It's quite brutal. And she finds an egg underneath this crow. So she takes, I don't know what an egg wants smashed to bits anyway, but she's got this egg and she takes it home, and this thing keeps growing and growing. And what appears, I'm not going to tell you because you need to watch it. And I think this film is basically a story of her mum kind of wants her daughter to be something. And in the end, I think that's what she becomes. So it's that journey. I may be wrong. Have you guys seen?
I haven't seen it, but I've seen the trailers and I've seen info about it. It looked a bit to me. It looked sort of like a kind of sort of surreal fairy tale in a show, or modern fairy tale.
With the egg and what it becomes. I think the trailer is quite misleading. Because I think we showed the trailer on the podcast when we had the technical abilities to do that, Jess.
Yeah, sorry.
But
Did they show the ending shot? Because that was something I remember that there was a shot in the trailer where it looked like it was the end scene.
what was in it? Do you remember?
Okay, well, yeah, no, I do remember, but well, just heads up then. But like, I remember obviously like that egg hatches, and it's like all like a mutant bird, but then
Yeah,
takes
okay.
the form of like
So,
a
but
human.
that bird keeps changing.
Yeah, like into like almost a copy, or like a human form.
Yes, I didn't want to
Yeah,
give that.
because it was in the trailer. Well, no, but it was in the
was in
trailer.
the
'cause
trailer,
I
was
remember
it?
there was a
Okay.
huge.
Yeah.
There was a debate.
Yeah,
amongst all
that's
four of us
shit.
where
They
it
should
was like,
never
this
see.
is-
I couldn't remember that part. So I must, I'm like, but I loved it.
Spoilers for anyone listening.
Yeah.
Whoops.
But what I got from it actually kind of works out. This is listening to you so much, and Larry and you, and I think I worked out what the message was. Because to me, not many films have a message. It is literally stab, 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 dead, escape, final girl, boy, whatever it is. That's normally how it comes across. But you got me thinking on that one, and it was good. So I'd like to, if you do get a chance to watch it, what your views are on it. So
Yeah.
you enjoyed that one. Yeah, so it's about that time to move on to what we've been watching over the last month or so.
What have you been watching?
No, seriously, what have you been watching?
Right.
Creepiest sound. No background music.
Oh,
You
we
didn't
had
do
the live
whisper.
music.
You didn't
Really?
get any of it. What's going on?
No, I know.
with
I had the what have you been watching, but it just came out as a whisper, like what have you been watch it. I was just like,
this week.
I swear, nothing.
So I've watched about 30 films, but I've got down to 5, and I will tell you the 5 that I've watched, and that we can talk about maybe a couple of them. So I watched The Menu.
The Menu.
Enjoyed that. I watched.
I had great conversations
some-
with you about that while I was
Yeah.
watching. it.
Yeah, yeah.
Something that you might like, Larry, was Men.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I've seen it twice. I've seen
so-
it twice.
That was good. Barbarian, which
I need to see
absolutely
Barbarian.
loved
Is
it.
that good? Yeah, good.
Yeah, I loved it. That was on Disney, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Disney
I think-
Plus.
Yeah, that was amazing. I watched Mr. Harrigan's Phone.
Yeah, is that the Netflix one?
Yeah,
that-
Stephen King adaptation.
Is that Ryan? Is that Ryan Murphy?
It's got a lad from it in it.
Yeah,
The young lad.
Stan, I think, not Stan, the other one.
No, the other one.
Yeah.
Oh God, what's his name?
Can't remember now. But yeah,
And Halloween Ends.
I never saw Halloween Ends. Not sure if
Shit.
I didn't mind Halloween Ends. I think it might have been a bit clever for some people, Larry. But like it's
I'm actually quite surprised you liked it because I
I
thought
didn't
it was
mind
a
it
very...
because I took it as what it was. How he'd been living where he was, Michael, eating.
I just thought it was too
I don't
complicated
know where he
for
went
what it could have
shopping
been.
or whatever he was doing. Yeah,
But like even the roundup of how they end the series, which I won't spoil, but like I just thought it was lazy. Like the first Halloween that they remade, I thought that was actually quite a good like introduction again into that world. Like let's tell another story. And then I think we reviewed the second Halloween on the
Yeah.
podcast, which I just felt was really odd, some of the decisions they made. And then with Halloween Ends, I just felt like they really wrote themselves into a corner, and they were just like, "This happens, and
I'd
it was
like
a shame
to
because,
review that. I'd like to talk about it properly because
yeah, it'd be good to do.
But so, Men from 2022 seeking refuge and solace after a horrifying loss, traumatized Harper flees London and holds up in a secluded manor in the idyllic English countryside. I'd like to talk about that one because there is some weird shit going on that I don't understand.
Mm.
Really
Um,
great film though.
Yeah, great
It is
film.
good. It was an interesting one when it came out because a lot of people actually didn't like it. So I was curious myself, and I went to see it when it was at the cinema. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very atmospheric. I liked the sort of patriarchal angle. I think a lot of people didn't like it because especially a lot of feminist critics I follow, they didn't like it because they thought a lot of it was quite basic. And it was made by a man as well, so so in their mind it's kind of, I don't know, a sort of feminism 101, so to speak. However, I actually quite liked that, and I don't think even though it is even though the sort of politics behind it is quite basic, I think I quite enjoyed the journey which Garland took me on, especially Jessie Buckley, who's great in everything. I mean, even if you don't like the film, you just got to admit that Jessie Buckley's performance is great.
Yeah.
And also just the sort of, I kind of like those films, the sort of horror films set in really small rural English villages, because it's just it reminds me of sort of, you know, the various movies that are in like set in sort of American suburbia where there's clearly something going on under the surface and there's something dark happening. And I think that's even more the case with sort of these villages, because I don't know, they tend to freak me out. Even though I live in like quite a small town near a few villages, I tend to get scared when I go to a small, like that time when I was with
I know
Lawrence.
what you're gonna say.
I was with Lawrence, you know, in the West Country, and we went to, what was it, Red Lynch, and it was it was around Easter time, and it was when all the May Day
Summer vibes.
stuff was going on. Very midsummer vibes, and it just all freaked me out. I was just like, "What is going on?" And I felt like I was going to be like, I don't know, executed in some like grotesque manner.
We were walking, weren't we, on the road, and we were talking about it like understandably, it was like, I think it was quite new for you. It was like, oh yeah, people do this. It's just the way it is. But as we're talking about how like eerie it is, we walk past literally the midsummer fucking pole with people dancing around it in the actual outfits. So we're just like, we're gonna die, aren't we? we're the odd we're dying.
It's
It's like
hilarious as well because
Being
you know,
in
there are people,
Salisbury, really.
Yeah, because I mean, there are many villages near me that have the same things. It's just I've never been to them, really. So it's a weird experience. But yeah, that's why I quite like Men. I quite like the atmosphere that Garland. It was clearly quite an experimental thing that Garland was trying. Because obviously Garland's done many things. You know, 20 Days Later, he wrote that. He did Ex Machina and Annihilation. These like big, often quite big sci-fi things. And this one just felt very much smaller and much more interesting. I think it was.
I love the end.
What did I miss?
I love the ending.
What did I miss?
I love the ending.
Why would they change
the
it?
ending? Change. Oh,
Why did someone come out their own arse or something?
I think it was,
spoilers, just in case anyone does or hasn't seen it.
Maybe I should leave it. But
I think it was
no, he's like you go because I was
it
going
called
to say
Shunting.
you go.
Is it?
Yeah, well, so to me, I mean, obviously, it's trying to sort of copy sort of Cronenbergian horror and stuff like that. But I think it was also thematically it works. So I think it was talking about the sort of constant sort of cycle of birth and rebirth of sort of patriarchal structures.
That's
I
what
think
I got from it as well.
So
That's
it's
what
like,
I got from
like the men are sort of being born the same way, and they're being brought up in the same attitudes with the same point of view, and therefore it's a constant cycle through history. And I think that's what he was trying to put forward, Alex Garland.
The only thing I'd add to that is that it's also like kind of a message of the ideals, especially in the film, of what men are thinking and how they react to certain things. It's almost like a mirrored image of like birth, of that, with the context of like women and how they feel in scenarios. You could go into it for hours of just like certain scenes, but a specific one is when she's in the pub trying to talk to a police officer, and the police officer's like, "Oh, has he done anything? Oh, don't worry about it then," like sort of thing, like just completely neglect. And it's that contextualization of what, like, as Ewan said, the cycle of everything. So as much as it uses
blokes are
imagery.
genuinely like that. I think a lot of men.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, well, that's what it
Don't worry
gets. That's
about
what it gets at.
happening.
We should probably
Yeah, well, that's what it gets at.
we should probably specify too that all the men are played by the same actor.
Yeah, every
are they?
single guy in the film.
Oh,
Yeah,
they're
every
all
single guy in the
Kinnear.
film.
That's straight over my head.
But they've all got the same face.
They all have the same face.
No, they didn't. Not when I watched it. They had different faces. One of them had no clothes
they really
on, so
did.
I wasn't looking at his face, obviously. So,
But when you but then,
Watches the film and doesn't even.
but hang on, when there's a scene, right, where the
they
the
were
woman-
different people.
where Jesse Buckley comes across a boy, and it's surreal because the boy has
That's not the
Rory
same bloke,
Kinnear's
is it?
The older man's face.
yeah.
No.
Didn't you then catch on to the fact that
No.
they were all the same face?
Oh, you've ruined this film for me now. 'Cause- No, I didn't. I thought they were all different people.
Did you? Well, they're all different people. Like their bodies are technically
Yeah.
different, but they all have the same face.
Well, I didn't see that. Oh.
Which is like kind of getting across the message.
You learn
of
all
like,
sorts on
almost
this podcast.
like- I don't understand how you've managed to watch that film and not get.
No, I didn't. Fucking hell.
Oh, you need to rewatch this film.
I do.
swear.
I
You
almost
in,
don't
I
believe
like
it.
you in. This is me, right? Oh wow. So they're all the same.
Yeah. So you did know they were all the same.
No, I didn't.
What?
I do now because you just told me.
Okay. All right.
Winding me up.
Fine.
I don't know if you're winding me up.
Oh, that's fun. No, they are all the same person. Like they are generally,
They have
which
the
is why I'm
same
quite baffled.
faces.
Right,
they're,
they look
you
like
know,
that.
they're
They look like they had different
characterised.
faces.
Okay. I'm going to try and analyze that tonight, sort of psychologically.
Wonder if I was looking at my phone too much that night. I don't know.
Just every time, just phone, just quickly catch the end. Like, oh, yeah,
Because
alright.
to be Kev, that's like coming out of Jurassic Park, and the person you went with just goes, "Oh, that was great with all the dinosaurs," and you just went, "What? There were dinosaurs?"
Yeah, there was a dinosaur in
Dinosaurs.
the film. They're just people.
Brilliant. Oh, I missed you.
Fucking hell. I bet there's people watching this now and they didn't realise that.
Was this another 5-pointer?
It was Christmas. Yeah, probably. It probably was because when it came out, I was looking forward to seeing it, and it came up on Prime, I think, and so I got it on straight away. Yeah, I really didn't know that, so I feel disappointed in myself. I've let you guys down. So it's.
I recommend watching it again. Watch it again.
You watch it again, and yeah, anyone who listens to this podcast probably knew I wouldn't fucking have a clue anyway. So, can I talk about Barbarian quick? Is that all right? Before we,
Yeah.
I know Larry's got to have his Brussels sprouts and that in a minute. So, so in town for a job interview, a young woman arrives at her Airbnb rental late at night, only to find that the house has been mistakenly double booked, and living there is Pennywise the dancing clown. So that's pretty much what happens. So this lady books this B&B, and there's a guy living there who happens to be the guy who plays Pennywise. And why did they go exploring downstairs? I can't remember. Anyway, they come across someone living underneath the Airbnb, and it's a massive place, isn't it? Underground system. How much can I give away?
You can't really give away too much because I'd say what you've said about it is probably
giving away a
good
bit
amount,
too
but-
much. Yeah.
well, no. I'd say what you've said about it is exactly what the trailers give you.
Okay.
So the mystery of what happens, I wouldn't give any of that away.
No. So I really enjoyed that. I'd probably give it 8. Same as Men. I'm not so sure on that. What rating to give? So I was going to give it like a 7 or 8. Now I feel like I haven't really watched it, so I'll probably give it less. But yeah, so I won't give too much away on Barbarian, which is available on Disney. So I'm not going to talk about the menu. We'll do that another week, and we won't talk about Halloween or Mr. Harrigan's phone. We'll do that another week. So, Jess, what have you been watching?
I know I've watched a lot. Can't remember half of it. But my New Year's resolution was to read. I would say read more, but I don't think I've read any books in the past 10 years.
That's terrible.
Yeah, I know.
I'm disappointed, Jess, because I've read every day.
I thought you were going to say read every book.
No, not every book.
Yeah, I've read every book ever written.
I've read one book, but I've been reading every day. So, but no, I've read a lot of books.
I haven't in a while.
It's good for you.
But I have read one book already this year, which was Jeanette McCurdy's "I'm Glad My Mum Died."
Oh yeah, I've been curious about that. I wondered.
Really
was it
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want some insights into what it was like for her growing up, working, Nickelodeon, that kind of thing, and it's really interesting. She's quite detailed in a lot of things. She doesn't really hide anything. She's very open. But yeah, that was really good. And then I have started. Larry will be glad to know.
Yay!
I was just about to mention this. I saw you a couple of your posts, and you
Complete Tales of H.P. Lovecraft.
I want that book.
I've read the first 2 or 3 stories. They're quite short. I might read another one.
One of them's really long. The one that Larry likes.
There's a few that are
So
quite long.
At the Mountains of Madness is quite a long.
That's almost like 150
The
pages.
Beast in
Isn't
the
it?
Cave, The Alchemist, and I think
That's what the thing is based off.
Yeah.
Have you read The Color Out of Space yet, Jess? Is Color Out of Space in there?
Should be.
I think they're all there.
Well, just because that's a really great story as well. But it is it was more of a. It wasn't really
every single.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to get that.
So yeah, I'm just going to go one by one in order.
Yeah,
I think they're in order of what he wrote them in.
Oh, that's quite cool then.
Yeah, because it starts with
That's
his
quite
very first one, and I read most of the first part of the book, which is all about him as well. And then I got bored, and I actually want to read a story. So, but other than that, I have watched Wednesday. Loved it.
Yeah, I like Wednesday too.
Bought the dress.
It does have that kind of. It's one of those the teen shows. It can be a bit cringe. It's got a bit of that in it, which I'm but for the most part, I loved it. I love the classic Addams Family as well. So And then I also remember watching 2 recent Marvel releases. So for Love and Thunder and the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special. I have no words to describe either of them. I have nothing to say.
I
But honestly-
love that Guardians of the Galaxy song at the beginning that those guys play. I thought that was so much fun. Do you remember that? It was a Christmas song, and I thought that was a lot of fun.
Oh,
Guardians,
yes,
of the,
yes,
Guardians
yes.
of the Galaxy. Guardians
I
of the
know what you're
Galaxy
about.
one was just kind of a bit of fun though. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just view that as like a quick holiday special. But yeah, I agree. Thor, Love
The
and
entire
Thunder,
time I was
yeah.
like, what is happening? What am I watching? Like, what is this?
Yeah,
Was it really bad?
it's just
No,
odd. It's an odd film.
Yeah. Really strange. But it was good. It was fun. It was like an enjoyable watch. But yeah, it doesn't take itself seriously whatsoever. It's meant to be very kind of just all humour, nothing serious.
Mm.
So, and then 4 as well was just kind of the same for me. There were some serious moments in it, but I feel like it tries to be too humorous most of the time. It was hard to kind of connect to those serious moments.
Yeah, especially when you have those 2 fucking goats screaming every second.
The goats, oh my god. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I like goats.
Fucking-
Fucking love goats.
Mm. That's
You
it, I
in.
think.
Well, maybe Lawrence should go before me just because of timing situations.
Yes, he's only got 3 minutes.
Good luck, Larry.
Fuck. No. So I saw Avatar 2. That was before Christmas.
Is it
I thought it
good?
was good.
Yeah.
It was good. It like don't get me wrong. Like,
3D.
you like that? Yeah. Like it's shot in 3D, but also like a really high frame rate, the same as what The Hobbit came out as.
Yeah.
I
Did you
Me and
find
Ria
though? Did you? Sorry to interrupt, but did you find?
no, go for it. I was gonna say
That-
we should do one each.
Maybe, yeah. But did you find that the frame rates often didn't match up?
Yeah, they changed. Yep.
That
changed.
really annoyed me throughout
Yeah,
the entire film.
it pissed me and Rhea off because you would see a sequence where it would be like the last action scene in the water and all that, and you'd be like, "Whoa, this looks incredible! Like, this is great." And then 2 seconds later, it would cut to something where you'd be like, "My eyes, my eyes fucking hurt."
But I swear I read
Um,
something that said that they did that on purpose or something to.
They probably did. I
What
just don't think it
reasoning?
worked. It's like turning the motion smoothing off a 4K TV
Yeah.
just constantly through the film. It's just I don't know.
because you would have sequences where it would like, don't get me wrong, the film looks phenomenal, and I think that if you like Avatar 1 and you want a continuation of that, like you want the next thing, you'll be happy. But at the same time, when I was watching it, and me and Ria both said this when we came out, we were like, I mean, this is not a spoiler because the trailers have already given all of this away, but for me and Ria, we both had a bit of an issue where we were like, the film starts and it's like, whoa, we're on Pandora and everything's going great. And then humans just return and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
wait, shit,
Ugh.
let's skip a whole bunch of years and
It's
we'll
just
go
like
to
a
now.
montage, like
Yeah,
half an hour
It's so
montage.
quick. It's so quick, and it just shoves shit at you like this happens, and this has
Yeah.
happened, and this has happened, and the humans are building this, and this is what's going on now. And it's like me and both of us were like, that's a film in itself. Why have you skipped this? Now, admittedly, I think the ocean scenes are fantastic, and I clearly know that I think most people do that. Like James Cameron has a love for like nature and the ocean, which that shows, and that's great. But yeah, like I walked out of it and went like, yeah, that was really cool. It was a nice experience. And then I just was like, but then after that, I was done with it. I didn't sit there and
Yeah.
go, I need to see that again. I went, great, cool experience.
Yeah, for me,
I'm
it was
done with
just-
it.
it wasn't so much. I didn't find a lot of some critics found it very mind-numbingly boring. I didn't find it so much boring, but I did find it a bit tedious.
Did you find the second act was just
Oh, it was
long?
so long. It was so long, and it was building up to this third act that it just feels to me that James Cameron is almost he's almost a director stuck in the 80s almost, and I feel like this movie would have worked better in the 80s, but I feel like now, obviously the technology is different, but you know what I mean, the story and everything is very sort of and you've got like the really stereotypical American military. And I'm not one to like boost the military or put them in a sort of always positive light, but it was just embarrassing just how like you watch it and you just see all these military like I'm talking like we are from Kansas, we're not in Kansas anymore, and we're gonna blow this shit up.
Yeah. There is literally a scene, and it's not a spoiler because without sounding bad, if you've seen the first Avatar, it's beat for beat the same.
Yeah.
It is beat for beat the same, just different settings. When you have your low point, something really drastic, when the first one, it was the tree falling down and everyone's like, oh shit, there's a moment very similar involving animals.
I will say that
there is
an animal scene, right? In which one of the kids bonds with a whale or something, a sort of type of whale that's in the water. It sort of bonds with it, talks its language and stuff like that. And the kid is sort of saying, tell me about your story and everything like that. And then the whale goes, it's too painful. And I was watching it in the cinema, and some guy just burst out laughing at that. And I was like, yeah. Fair enough. Just the idea of an existential whale is quite.
We had a completely opposite cinema, and I think me and Ria felt really out of place because we had that reaction where we were just like, there are moments that are emotional, but there are moments that aren't. Like there are moments that are laughable. But we had a couple behind us, an elderly couple, and there's a enemy, how I should say, because I don't want to spoil it too much. But there's an enemy who's very like a dick to nature. And you know how it's going to end up. But when that scene happens, this elderly woman behind us was just there going like, get him, you go, whoa. And we were just sat there like, you're that invested in this that you have to speak aloud, not like quietly to like who she's with. Like, I mean, shouting like, oh, get him, and you're just there like, I don't give a fuck. Like it looks great, but I am interested because I do think that it'll sizzle out. I think that like the second one coming out, I think a lot of people went to see it because they're interested in it. Like, oh, I want to see, but I can't see it going 5 without people going, I'm fucking bored with this.
Yeah.
I mean, it ends with the same fucking
It's
shot.
meant to be 5.
That's the first one. It ends the same shot, like identical. And I was just like, you can't do that a third time. Fool me once, fool me twice. Fuck you the third time. Like, you can't do that 5 times in a row. So, that was my first one. I'll hand it over to you and we'll just go back and forth.
Yeah, sure. I think my favorite film this year, so far, I know it's only January, but Babylon. Which I went to see for a second time today. It's Damien Chazelle's new movie. So the guy did La La Land and Whiplash and First Man, which I haven't seen, but apparently it's quite good. I really love Babylon. It's been a very divisive film. I've seen reviews that are 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, just all across the board. It's a very divisive film. There are people who absolutely hate it and people who absolutely love it. And I'm in the latter camp. It's basically his kind of... it's sort of set in the 1920s, so it's during the sort of as silent movies were crossing into talkies, and it's about sort of behind the scenes basically. But it's a really fun, hedonistic experience because you've got all the sort of jazzy stuff that Damien Chazelle loves to do. I mean, if you just watch Whiplash, you can see how much Chazelle loves jazz music and how much it goes to the beat and everything like that, and that's pretty much infused in there. But you've also got, so many, like, it starts off like with a massive party with like sex and elephants like coming in and dwarves with like holding like giant penis statues and stuff like that. So it's a very sort of hedonistic, weird sort of Bacchanalian experience, but it's sort of
Sounds amazing.
but then it goes into like 20s filmmaking where it's like everything's like shot all at once and it's all in silent and it's very like meticulous and ordered. But then then the film turns when it goes into sound, and ironically everything is silent because they're in sound stages and they have to film on quiet sets and everything like that. And I tell you what, there's a sequence in which they're trying desperately to film this shot using the new sound and stuff. And I tell you what, it reminds me so much of uni. Just I mean, obviously there's so much passion and creativity that goes into filmmaking, but also it's such a shit show sometimes that it's so painful and you want to kill yourself. And I think this film captures that to a T. And I think a lot of people romanticize filmmaking, and justifiably so. And it's a wonderful medium and I love it to bits. But also often people don't talk about the rough side or how horrible it can be and how weird it can be. Just the various situations I experienced at uni were enough to fill a book probably. But it's sort of
waiting for that book.
yeah. But I think that's what I really appreciated about this film, and I wonder if I'm not saying this is definite, but I think I wonder if a lot of critics who turned against the film are sort of over romanticize movies to the extent that they don't believe that this sort of stuff happens. And it is over the top. It is an over the top movie. It's very sort of Baz Luhrmann in that regard. But I think again it's justifiable, and I think that there's always, when you really dig into movies, that you tend to have a kind of love-hate relationship. At least with me, I have a sort of love-hate relationship with movies because I love them. I love what they do to me. I love what they can create. I love what they can, the experience they can give me. But remember back to how awful it can be behind the scenes, and how sort of especially back in that day, back in the 1920s, where there was no health and safety regulations and stuff like that, and that can obviously be played for laughs, and it's great. But it's but I think even though it is over the top and it is exaggerated, I think it's still quite a truthful account of what cinema is, and it's also a very sort of deep love letter to it, as well as being an orgy of lust about cinema as well. So it's a really good film, and I recommend it. I also just want to mention I went to see an experimental horror film yesterday at the Prince Charles Cinema in Leicester Square, and I think it's the only venue in Britain to show this film. But it's been doing quite well. It's called Skinamarink.
I can't wait to see this.
So it's a film that was made on a very modest budget, so $15,000, I think, so very low. And it's one of those sort of very brilliant success stories where a low budget film made for 15 grand and it goes like global sort of thing. It's not taken off in the same way like Blair Witch has or anything like that, but it's kind of done the sort of smaller circuits. And as I say, Prince Charles Cinema in Leicester Square is the only place where it showed it at the cinema. It's coming to Shudder later this year. It's a very curious and interesting film. I don't think all of it works. It's basically set in this. It's basically a lockdown movie in many respects. So it's set in this house, and you're not entirely sure what's going on. Everything's in the dark, basically. I interpret it personally as like a ghost movie, almost from the perspective of the ghosts. So you're sort of like looking at the sort of residents of the house. A common thing in this film is that you don't see faces. You don't see any of the characters' faces. You barely see the characters at all, actually. And there are long stretches when nothing happens. Classic sort of experimental sort of situation there. But I tell you what, it's one of those films where it's like, I can tell that there is a really good director behind this. And you almost look forward to what they're going to do next. I don't think this is going to be... that this is an amazing film, but there are aspects of it like even technically it's almost like I think it's a bit more profound than this, but it's almost like when he was editing it, the guy who made it, he turned the gain up so that everything looked really scratchy and really weird, like in the dark sort of thing, and that creates an effect where it almost looks like there's like static, and you're sort of like your eyes are forming shapes within the static and the dark, and that in itself is quite frightening. And I think that's sort of technically quite good. However, I don't think the story is enough to repel that. And I think it wasn't a surprise to me when I found out that this film was sort of an extended version of a short film that they made, because it does feel like an extended short, because there are just long stretches where nothing happens, and it's 100 minutes long. I think you could easily make it 80 minutes, and it would have been better. But it's an interesting film, and I do recommend seeing it. And I think also with that technical effect, I think it does capture perfectly what it's like to be afraid in the dark, which I don't see in a lot of movies at all. Because when you're in the dark and you're scared, your eyes are trying to adjust, and that in itself is quite scary. And I don't think I've seen any other horror films that have achieved it as well as Skinamarink. And I think Skinamarink is good for that. But as I say, I don't think this is the film that's going to make this guy like really well known. I think his next project, whatever it will be more interesting than this. But I wish him well. I thought it was
I'm
really,
looking forward to seeing it,
especially in the cinema. In the cinema, it was good. I recommend
Really.
watching it in the darkest setting possible. So at night in the dark, curtains closed. It's good.
Nice.
I only have one more really because I did watch a lot, but my mind's blanking. So I'll probably bring them up in future. But the one that I want to mention was The Last of Us.
TV series.
Yeah, TV series. Episode 1 aired, and episode 2 is airing tomorrow. Well, airing tonight if you're staying up till 2 a.m. But
okay.
I really enjoyed it. I was really surprised. I think the acting is solid. I think the set design is fantastic. I love how they've not just taken the game and just done beat for beat of the scenes. Anyone who's played The Last of Us knows that there are like gaps which this series fills in really well. I said this to Ria. I only have 2 criticisms, which is there's an opening scene, the opening scene, which I know is in there for people who haven't played the game. And I feel like as much as it's there to explain what's going on, I felt for me, I was a bit like, you are literally just sat there going, this is what it is. This is how it's going to work. If this comes about, we can't do shit. And it was like, well, I would have preferred just a more cold opening of just how the game is. I say cold opening, but just a straightforward, like, we're in it. Whereas that I felt, and my another issue, but this is a reserved issue because I think episode 2 will resolve it. But the ending, anyone who's played the game knows that when you find out Ellie's circumstance, that scene in the game is very prolonged. You have characters asking questions: when, how long? Oh, it's been from this amount of time. And in that first episode, there's a couple of lines where it's like, oh no, she's da-da-da.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, we just got to go. We just got to go now.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping the start of the next episode really fills that gap, because I understand that changes will be made, but there are elements where I'm like, please don't delete this from the series, because these are moments that made the game. So, but other than that, I think we both agreed in the group chat. I gave it a solid 8 out of 10. Like, I think it's always tricky with an opening episode, but I think it did really well, and I'm excited to see what they do. And obviously it's not a spoiler if you haven't seen it, but just similar to the game, you don't have clickers in the first episode. I saw a lot of comments going, there were no clickers, and it's like, well, the game,
just wait, be patient.
Clickers in the trailers, wasn't there? I'm sure I've seen trailers with clickers.
but I saw a lot of comments where people were like, oh, I've seen the opposites of both ends. I've seen people going 10 out of 10, best game adaptation ever. And it's like, yeah, no, I would agree. This so far from a first episode, it's looking to be that. But similarly, I've seen people go, oh shit, didn't see a clicker. There's hardly any zombies in it, and it's like,
it's funny. It's funny because I think it was a great opening episode, and I think it did surpass the much needed threshold of being a good adaptation, which obviously every video game movie sort of tries to be, but it never is. Whereas this is actually a TV series in itself, which I think Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann strived for. They strived, okay, this is a TV series. It's not a video game. This is a TV series. Although I'm still slightly skeptical. I've only seen the first episode. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good, but it's funny, as a massive fan of the game, it's difficult because I think the game was created to be a game. You know, it's an experiential experience, and a lot of the emotions that you have for the characters are based on the fact that you essentially walk in their shoes because you're playing them and you're in the game, and it brings a deeper sort of a depth of empathy that is often not around for other mediums. Whereas with the TV series, it's interesting because you don't have that same or exact same level of empathy. And I wonder if that's why they've gone as far as 9 episodes, because I think they want to try and build that. Because I think the first episode was just trying to get the main stuff out the way, get the catalyst out the way, you know, Ellie's circumstance, as you say, to try and get that like sorted and everything like that. And then we'll continue to do the sort of character building through future episodes. And I think that I am optimistic, but I do worry about whether it will be if it will match up to the original, which is not a good thing to expect. But I think it's difficult when you're a big fan.
Yeah, no, but I completely agree. I had the same thing. Like when you're watching it, you're like, yeah, this is great, but I completely agree. When you love, you know, I've played that game more than I think 3 times through. Obviously not the PlayStation 5 version. That's going to be next on my list, but it's also so good.
Yeah,
you know, you're used to it, and you sit there and you go, these scenes. I remember the first time playing it, knowing nothing, like no one did. You're just going through, and you're like, how is this going to end?
But it's also.
I will just.
Yeah, you're gonna go
for it. Go for it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, okay, yeah. Oh, no, yeah.
But the thing is that it was interesting because the thing that I liked the fact that they added new scenes and they built up the world a bit more. And to be honest, I did like the opening scene as well because that offers some change. What I didn't much like, and this is only for people who have played the game, is that when you see scenes from the game, you know, translated into the scenes on the TV screen, and they're not as good as or not as well done as the one in the game. That's the thing that I struggle with. But I think since they've moved away from the main bit, they'll sort of come into their own sort of thing. I do wonder how faithful they'll be. I'm kind of hoping they're not that faithful, or at least not very faithful, because I think the whole point of a TV series or another adaptation is to have something new. I know they're going to, you know, cover the same beats and whatever, but I think if they achieve something different, I think that'll be more interesting to me rather than being really comparative about it.
And a prime example, I mean, to anyone who's played the game, is when you play the game, and obviously, as you said, you're playing it as Joel. You know, for the majority, I'd say, because obviously there are moments where, but there's like this whole story beat, which I really liked about the series, because in the game, and it's not a spoiler because it's so early on, but you know, you're trying to get to this guy, Robert, who's fucked you over with something, and you know, you're playing it, so it wants you to go through levels of, you've got guys to take out. And I really liked how they handled that, because they were like, you cannot physically do that in a series. So we have to go around it. But it still gave you the story beats of, oh, okay. But no, I was just going to end it with, I actually had a complaint from Rhea, which it was my fault, but she watched it as well. We watched it on different days, and I love The Last of Us, so I've showed her like the opening scene from the game, and I just had this I just had this sentence from her like, no, I really liked it. It's just a shame on you how it fucking opened. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I was like, I'm so sorry. She was like, yeah, don't show me more. No, yeah, but it was hilarious because obviously I'm not going to say them in here just in case anyone who's listening or anyone in here has not played the full game. But it was just hilarious because there's like another moment where she's like, oh, that character, is that the character where this happens? I was like, how do you know that? And she's like, because you fucking showed me. And I'm like, oh no, I'm so sorry. But I haven't spoiled the end. I know that for a fact. So So
Do you think
all
they
good.
keep to that ending of the game?
I think so.
I pray they do. I mean, it's already been hinted at in the
It's
trailer.
incredible, the ending. If they get that actually on screen.
Well,
Yeah.
is it Neil? I always get his last name. Druckmann.
Yeah.
Yeah, Neil. Well, he's basically come out and said like he has no intentions of doing spin-off series or changing the plot.
Yeah. So it could be
which
just 2
leads to a lot.
seasons, you know.
Well, no, but this is what leads to speculation of like people, myself included, think that they'll do season 1, they'll start production on season 2, but then while they're doing that, a 3rd game will be released. So
Yeah,
there's 3
maybe.
seasons
Yeah, yeah,
complete.
yeah.
But I'm hoping not, because I know a lot of people, I think we've discussed this before, a lot of people have backlash against the second part. And I think that a lot of it is,
Well, the game.
admittedly, I can understand. Yeah, the game. A lot of people, I cannot.
10% into that. I haven't done a huge amount of
Well,
it.
yeah. Well, no, I won't spoil anything at all. But all I'll say is that I saw there's a lot of, and I know me and Ewan have discussed this quite a bit, but a lot of the backlash seemed to be like people just a bit butthurt that they didn't get The Last of Us Part 1 again.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I thought it was a great story, which is what you have to have. But
And, you know,
I think a
and, you
lot
know,
of
it's-
people were
it-
disappointed.
I was
Yeah,
playing
yeah.
a different character when I was been playing
Yeah.
recently.
Yeah, well, I think that's the. And you know, it's something to say. You know, if you didn't like the game, you didn't like the game. It's not anything wrong with that. But it's
It's not a
there's-
crime, obviously.
Yeah, there's I don't know. There's this kind of weird attitude of people holding the first game in such regard that any
Yeah.
change is quite difficult. And I liked the differences in part 2, and I thought it was very innovative how they tackled the story, and just it's evidence to show that video games are a valid storytelling medium, and it's one that often people don't realize. You know, I know a lot of people who wouldn't understand what I just said, that video games could tell
Yeah.
stories to such an emotional thing, and some people might even laugh at that. But I think Last of Us Part 2 and the first one, and you know, I'm going to say against the Death Stranding, I think also, but I think it shows how, you know, storytelling can be multiversal in a weird way. And I think Last of Us and Last of Us 2 are key to that, which is why a TV series, as much as I like the first episode, I'm still skeptical, because
I will hold all of my review like completely until I see that last episode and I can look at it as a whole thing. But as a first episode, it's a great start. I know that there's been review like Empire, for instance. I know Empire reviewed the whole season. Like they got the whole season and they gave it 5 out of 5. And they were like, oh, it's so good. But I
Okay.
think, like you said, you can't off the first episode. I'm like, yeah, I really want to see the next episode, especially the way it ends. Which again, if you've played the game, you know what's coming next. So it's like, oh, great. But yeah, I'll say for now, first episode 8 out of 10. But I'll review it as a whole series when it's all finished and see what it turns out to be.
Excellent. So is that it? So many thanks everyone for sticking with us. And we've had a bit of a break, and it's always good to kind of have a break sometimes. Podcast is 3 years old this year, which is crazy when I think about it. So next week we will be back with episode 99, which is Annabelle Comes Home. Is that right?
Yep.
Is it Comes Home? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that will be a little better than The Nun. I'm pretty sure.
I hope so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. There's no Dan's hot pick at the moment, so I might just pick something for him. See what I can find and watch for that. So if you want to follow us on Twitter, it's the Bones Horror Pod. Instagram, Bones Horror Pod. Yeah, if you want to email us, even it's boneshorrorpod@gmail.com. So we'll be back next week, and thank you ever so much for listening, staying with us, and I'm pretty sure we're all back next week. Yeah, hopefully.
Should be.
Be nice to keep it going for that episode 100, which I think will be quite exciting. So see you all next week then, guys. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
You're ignorant.